Today we're going to take a look at how Gen Z is changing the workplace. Is Gen Z having a positive impact or a negative impact? I'll leave that up to you to decide.
A generation and population that doesn't want to come back to work. A generation, largely generation, that has a different definition of what full-time employment is. Like, who says I have to work full-time for one company? I can work full-time for two companies. But we pay you your full salary and we pay you benefits. You can't work for anybody else. Why not? I mean, I don't think that's been resolved. Of what the definition of full-time employment is, especially when I don't keep normal hours. What the definition of the value of a job is. Like, some people want to have ambition and they want to move up the ranks, and some people don't. They just want to get to work and make a bit of money and pay their bills, and they don't really care about progress up. You know, they want to do good work and be treated well. They still take pride in their work. They're not lazy. They're not career hunters, you know? The way to combat all of these things, or manage all of these things, look, the list goes on, is to be very open and honest about it, to have a conversation and to make the implicit explicit. When you take implicit tensions and you make those tensions explicit, even if you don't have resolution, it at least normalizes it. So to say things like, these are strange times where we don't really know what full-time employment means, we say to the team. Or I know that many of us are still struggling with, like, what kind of careers do we want? And do we even want to work here? Do I even want to work hard? Or what does that even mean?
So the guy in this video is Simon Sinek, and he's an author. He talks a lot about workplace trends. He actually wrote a great book that I highly recommend called Leaders Eat Last. Great book, one of my favorites. But there's a couple things that he's talking about here that I think is unique to Gen Z. You know, he's talking about this idea of Gen Z is the first generation where maybe they're double employed because of remote work, right? It's like maybe you work full time for two employers, or you actually, probably not. You're probably working 30 hours for one, 30 hours for the other. But if the work is getting done, I don't see the problem in that. And the reason that I say that is because these employers are not paying us enough to actually be a full-time employer for the most part. For example, employers will tell you that $40,000 a year is a livable wage. Most people in Gen Z today know that $40,000 is really not enough to get by. You might scrape by, but any kind of unforeseen expense is going to just destroy you. So if these employers are not paying enough to have you and your undivided attention, how can they be mad that you're like, well, look, I got to go over here too to make some more money. Y'all are not paying me enough to afford $2,000 rent, which is what our generation is dealing with. And the other thing that he talks about here is how Gen Z, a lot of folks in this generation, we're not corporate hunters. We're not necessarily looking for the quickest raise possible. We're not necessarily trying to work our way up the corporate ladder. I think that's actually a byproduct of corporate America making that corporate ladder more difficult for Gen Z than past generations. What do I mean by that? If you ask most Gen Z, the prospect of getting a raise is so far outside of the realm of possibility. For most Gen Z, companies just don't have opportunities for advancement like they used to. And so a lot of Gen Z have resorted to this system where we change jobs every 2 years, because people who change jobs actually make significantly more over time than people who stay with companies, show loyalty, and try to work their way up these corporate ladders. So Simon Sinek here is kind of saying, look, that's a Gen Z phenomena. I say it's only a Gen Z phenomena because these corporations are making it so that they can't stay with companies, they can't work their way up corporate ladders like people did in the past. That's on the companies. This next one is Brett Cooper before everything that happened with the Daily Wire in her show over there.
There's a lot of stuff going on. People are struggling financially. Their jobs that used to pay the bills now can't keep up with the increasing cost of living. And for a lot of people, vacations are just out of the question. But not just because they can't afford them, because they feel bad and guilty taking the time off from their jobs. And I shouldn't even say that, because often I feel guilty taking time off because I want to be here. However, people do feel this way, and millennials who work remotely have found a new work.
Her talking about feeling bad taking time off from the Daily Wire sounds a little different now after everything that's happened.
Workaround, and they're calling it quiet vacationing. We need to talk about it. All right, so the news media started covering this last month, and the first viral story read, millennials are quiet vacationing rather than asking their boss for PTO. There's a giant workaround culture. And you might be thinking, how would this even work? Like, obviously your boss is going to notice if you are not at the office, but this is mainly for people who work remote. And the fact that they can just make this broad sweeping statement in all of these articles just goes to show how prevalent remote work has become. But anyway, basically, rather than asking for PTO or paid time off, these people will just go on their vacation. And according to this article, they do minimal work, or they just move their mouse around to show their online work system that they're actually active, or they will set emails to go out automatically even though they are not actually typing them or working, to make it look like they are working even though they are on vacation.
Yo, I've got some buddies who may or may not have some of those little software I don't know what it's called, the little mouse jiggler. And it does help them on those remote days where they don't have anything to do, but maybe they need to look like they have something to do. That's a real thing.
So in a sense, because they're not actually doing anything productive or working, it's basically the same as paid time off. They just didn't ask for permission or tell the company that they are on vacation, and it also reserves extra paid days off.
I work hard for the money. So hard for the money.
Now, a few days after that article came out, another article, this one from Fortune, came out that got into even more details. Fortune wrote, millennials call it quiet vacationing, but it's really remote work gone wrong, and it's CEO's worst nightmare. And all of this information is coming from one report that the Fortune article talked about. According to the Harris Poll's out-of-office culture report from May, surveying over 1,100 employed U.S. adults, 37% of millennial workers said that they took time off without telling their supervisors or managers. And again, guys, it is the guilt. It is fueled by this guilt. But the cost of no ruffled feathers is the baggage of guilt and stress for many of these workers. The Harris Poll's report indicates that most employees are happy with the number of paid time off days that they're allocated, suggesting that the desire for quiet vacations aren't a policy issue, but rather a cultural one.
Yo, I don't know if I fully believe that most people are completely satisfied with the amount of PTO that they get off. Like, this is the United States of America. It's not like people have a guaranteed 2 weeks. There are a lot of Gen Z, especially because they're in those entry-level jobs or those jobs that are maybe more like service-based, where they probably don't even have more than a week of PTO, right? And I don't know. Part of me is like, I think that stat is inflated. But what Brett Cooper is talking about here is the phenomena of quiet vacationing. And we actually talked about this in a recent video. But yeah, people are basically saying, look, if I'm going to work remote, why don't I go on vacation, take my kids to the beach or whatever, and just work from the hotel room, right? Like, why do I have to be physically at my house working remote? If I can accomplish the work elsewhere, why can't I be elsewhere, right? Or if I'm going to go take a vacation anyways, right, with my family, why can't I leave a day earlier and work remote from wherever it is that we're going to be vacationing at? And I totally support it. I think, look, as long as the work gets done, it shouldn't matter. And they're talking about this is CEO's biggest nightmare. Well, look, that's on the CEO to be able to actually measure results. If you're noticing a downtick in results in the actual quality of work getting done, then look, punish these people, demote them, fire them, whatever you got to do. But if the work is getting done at the same level and you're not even noticing a difference in the quality of work, the quantity of work, but you're just mad that they're somewhere else, well, then I think you have a control problem.
Half of the survey's respondents, including 61% of millennials and 58% of Gen Z, said that they feel nervous about requesting time off. Feeling pressure to always respond to work inquiries and guilt about leaving leftover work to colleagues were some of the biggest reasons why. And apparently this guilt is especially a big thing for millennials. In fact, there's a whole phenomenon called millennial guilt. They feel like they've let their parents down. They haven't achieved anything after they went to their university. They're drowning in student loan debt and not making enough money. They're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. They think the world is going to end and they're causing it. They're guilty, and then they don't want to take paid time off, so they do this. It's a whole mess. That's apparently the cycle.
Yo, I think that's the big difference between millennials and Gen Z. Millennials were really that generation that tried so hard to get the affirmation of their parents' generation. They tried to get the affirmation of baby boomers and say, no, look, I'll get the degrees. I'll go to college. I won't just get a bachelor's. I'll get a master's. They're that generation of constantly trying to play into the boomer system that boomers say, if you just work hard, if you just do this and that, you'll get to that next level. And millennials are that generation that tried that. Gen Z, where we're different, is we watched millennials try that and still have less purchasing power, less ability to buy homes, or if they could buy homes, it was much later in life. And so Gen Z is starting to look at it and go, yo, boomers, this life advice that you're giving is not applicable anymore. And honestly, the game is rigged to keep all of the money with the incumbent class, specifically older Americans, those who already have wealth. The kids are at a disadvantage. So you know what? If you're not going to treat me with respect, if I don't have the ability to ever purchase a home off of the wages that you're paying me, if you're trying to buy me full time, but you're only paying me $40,000 a year and my rent is $2,000 a month, well then you know what? I'm probably going to go get other jobs, or I'm not going to take your career as seriously. You can't blame the kids. You're paying me in monopoly money and expecting me to really treat your company like this is the future. Come on now.
Back to the point, like that Fortune article mentioned, this could turn into a huge problem for businesses who are relying on these employees. And if they're just sending random emails and not telling their bosses that they're going to be out of the office, that could be a problem. But these millennials and Gen Zers don't really seem to care about those impacts, and they're actually bothered by the way that the media has framed all of this. Just watch this video.
Millennials try to create just a smidge of work-life balance in their lives by saying, hey, by the way, I'm no longer going to be going above and beyond. I'm just going to stick to what's in my just job description and what I'm actually getting paid for. And they wanted to call it quiet quitting. And now that we're saying, we're probably not going to be able to retire, so hey, why not just go to the pretty places now? We can still work and we can still get the job done. And they want to call it quiet vacationing. You want so badly for us to go back to your old ways of doing it. We tried that. We tried the hustle, and guess what? It did not pan out well for us.
The unfortunate thing is that hustle culture can work, and it did work for previous generations, but the economy was in a better place. So right now I understand where these people are coming from, because obviously they are putting in the hours, they are doing everything that their parents told them to do. Go get the degree. Take out a student loan because you'll be able to pay it off, because this amazing degree you're getting will mean that you're immediately making 6 figures, you're gonna be great, you're gonna buy a house, you're gonna retire, it's all gonna be amazing. That is not happening for people. And I think it's important to realize that and empathize, because they're obviously feeling like this isn't working. We should vote differently so it maybe can work again. But I think that perspective is important here.
Thanks, Obama.
Now, the woman who posted this video on X, Amanda Getz, said, first they called it quiet quitting. Now they call it quiet vacationing. You know, it's not quiet. How tired millennials are of BS corporate culture. We tried climbing the corporate ladder and we still can't buy houses or save for retirement. Agree with Peter Goose on this one. Out is giving everything for a company who doesn't care about you. And in is work that enables you to feel fulfilled in and out of the office. And the responses to all of this have been very conflicted across the board. There were a lot of people that were shaming those writers and the media for even bringing attention to this, because a lot of those writers are in their mid-20s and 30s, so they felt like they were betraying their generation. That was some criticisms. One person said, "Man, this feels more like entitlement." That generation worked harder and enjoyed less and sacrificed more, which can be true in many ways. They valued owning a home, security, etc. This generation wants to travel the world, go to non-stop sporting events, concerts, and eat out or order in 15 meals per week. They choose to live better today and sacrifice for future living. Not right or wrong, but the woe is me verbiage gets old, in my opinion.
That is so unbelievably BS, okay? I'll use myself as an example. If I could avoid eating out, going on trips, and be able to afford a home, then I would stop doing all of that today and funnel that money into a home. Even if I stop any discretionary spending in my life, I am unable to afford a home. So now my thing is, do I either spend some discretionary money and try to have some sort of fun, some sort of, memories that I'm building in my life, even though I can't own a home? Or do I not have any discretionary spending and not be able to afford a home? So I'm not having any kind of fun or any kind of lifestyle that I really enjoy, and I can't afford the long-term investment that is a home to start a family. So it's like kids are like, yo, I've just been priced out of a home. Let me make the best of this by at least trying to have a fun lifestyle. I really truly believe if homes were more in grasp today, you wouldn't see so much travel with the youth, It's like kids are just responding to the situation that they're in, but then people want to pretend that we're still working by the facts as they were for the last generation. No, the facts are different today. And a lot of people just recycle these old tired points of, well, you just need to work harder. Maybe that worked for the lazy guy in 1962. That does not work today. So stop recycling these lines. Can we please progress and actually look at the situation as it is today?
This guy is not wrong at all, and I completely agree with a lot of what he's saying. But again, the economy has changed drastically from a few generations ago, because what worked for boomers 20, 30 years ago probably won't work for young people today, because that is just the state of our world. And that's okay, but that just means that young people do need to reevaluate, figure out what their priorities are, and then work towards that. If you don't want to buy a home, if you don't care about having kids, you don't really care about your retirement, you just want to float around, vacation, whatever, do that. But if you do want to own a home, if you do want that traditional life, then you are going to have to hustle. And a lot of things that these people are doing, this quiet quitting, this quiet vacationing, probably is not going to lead you to those goals. However, on top of that, I don't disagree that this attitude is very entitled.
I think one of the most frustrating things as a Gen Z person is that this traditional lifestyle is not achievable by the traditional means anymore. And so in the past, it would be, look, you want to purchase a house, have 2 kids, get married, buy 1 car, maybe 2, and that's a good middle class life. And that was achievable by working, 1 or 2 jobs, maybe the husband and wife, 40 hours, maybe 50 hours a week. If you have even 2 people today working 40, 50 hours a week, trying to climb their way up the corporate ladder, they're not going to be able to purchase a middle class home, afford 2 children, and afford 2 vehicles. Just the vast majority of Gen Z is not able to achieve that traditional lifestyle by the traditional means. And so what gets frustrating is when we then try to achieve that lifestyle by non-conventional means, because the conventional means don't work anymore, What you guys prescribe doesn't work anymore. So we go, okay, well, let's try and work 2 jobs. Let's try and work 60 hours a week, and we'll kind of just work 30 at both and say we're working 40 at both, and we'll just try to make the best. Now you're shaming your kids. Oh, you're basically stealing from your company by giving them those 30 hours a week. Yes, you're getting the work done, but you're supposed to be loyal to that one company. Now, Timmy, don't you go working 2 jobs. Or if the kids are like, well, maybe I can work remote and save some money by not having to travel and eat out as frequently. Maybe I can stay at home, and maybe if I work 2 jobs, but they're both remote, so I can do some of my chores at home while I work. Now, Timmy, don't you do that. That's different than what we like. Well, then pay up. Pay up the money to allow Gen Z to work 1 job, to have a house, to start a family. You guys can't have it both ways. You can't deprive the kids of everything, of the possibility of everything in the past that past generations had, and simultaneously scold them when they try to figure out a way to get it. It's ridiculous. Anyways, my name is Mitchell. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out one of these videos. Make sure to hit subscribe. God bless you guys, and I'm out.